Welcome back to the Fast Performance Baseball Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of baseball development and performance enhancement. I'm your host, Cole Thomas, and today we have a special guest who brings a wealth of expertise and knowledge to the table. Joining us today is Jason Hirsh, former MLB pitcher for the Astros and Rockies, and currently the co-owner of Fast Performance. With a keen focus on baseball operations, Jason has been instrumental in shaping the training programs and methodologies at Fast Performance, helping athletes optimize their skills and reach their full potential. Throughout his career, Jason has honed an expertise in pitching mechanics, mental skills, and player development, and has successfully translated his on-field experience into a passion for coaching and training the next generation of baseball athletes. Today, we will dive into a range of topics with Jason exploring the secrets behind effective player development, the role of technology in modern training approaches, and the mental aspect that contribute to the peak performance on the mound. Whether you're a player, a coach, or a dedicated fan of the game, get ready to gain valuable insights from a seasoned professional who has seen it all. Without further ado, let's jump right in to my conversation with Jason Hirsh. Jason, thank you for coming on the show. It's been a long time coming. I don't know why.
I know this is like our podcast, and I'm not on our podcast.
I've just never taken the time to actually invite you on, other than the ABCA one.
Is this almost just like between two ferns, but on opposite ends of the table? Can we call it that?
Sure, we'll go with that. All right. So for people who I guarantee the people who follow this podcast, it'd be hard to not know who you are, but just give everyone.
Just Google me.
Yeah, just
it's a lot easier just to Google me.
Just give a little quick rundown.
My name is Jason Hirsh.
Hi, Jason.
I am a co-owner here at Fast Performance. I am a former major league pitcher, and I don't know what else you want. That's it. Yeah, I started this thing like 10 years ago and giving private pitching lessons, and it's now mushroomed into owning a facility and not getting paid. So here we are.
All right. Okay, so we can get started with just have some see if you get some
mic
valuable.
is really problematic.
I know it's not going to be good for you.
I'll slouch.
All right. So as a former big league pitcher, you've seen just about everything. You tell me stories. All the guys who work here, like the craziest things you've seen. How have you translated the things you've learned throughout your career into now how we approach baseball ops and development here at Fast?
Yeah, well, like I said, it started 10 years ago, teaching the way that I was taught. Very hands-on, boom, 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 mechanical type deal, right? Dowel drills, the whole nine. Originally, I started because I wanted to do I saw a lack of arm care being pushed onto our youth athletes. I just saw them playing games and tournaments, and really tournaments not as much now as they were then, but I've evolved over the years from even the way that I was taught as a kid to the way I was taught as a pro, and I think that's really important for guys in our field, is to not get stuck on the idea that we have to do it a certain way because this is the way it's always been done. We as a facility have a lot of influences. Different people that have come in and out of our lives. Alan Jager's a great mentor. So a lot of the, breathing, long toss, arm care, focal points, a lot of that stuff has come out of him. Driveline has obviously been a big influence on what we do in terms of programming and, thoughts around player development, and they're kind of on the cutting edge of this. And so that's kind of what we've brought. It is. We're constantly evolving, constantly changing things. And I think as any good coach that is listening to this or watching this, you have to be willing to kind of keep your eyes and your ears open in terms of what's being put out there. You don't immediately write everything off as this is a bunch of baloney. We have an MLB group on Facebook that I feel like daily they post a video of somebody doing something with a kid,
right,
or working with an athlete, and they're like, "Oh, this is a bunch of bullshit," blah blah blah. And I'm like, "How do you know? Right? Your knowledge as a baseball coach ceased the day you hung up your spikes 30 years ago. So how do you know that this is bullshit?
Yeah.
Why aren't you looking into it, going, why is this guy doing this? Right now, don't get me wrong. There are bad apples out there. Lots of bad apples." Yep. And that's kind of where, we kind of come in, like our sphere of influence kind of, that community, I feel like is more on the forefront of, we're trying to evolve the game and player development realm. And then there's another sect of that community that's trying to make a quick buck by pumping out a bunch of bullshit. And that's where we've got to be able to separate ourselves so that if you're a travel ball parent or you're a dad, mom, whatever it might be, and you just don't know, going to YouTube is not the best way to do this. It would be more ideal for you to reach out to a facility like us or through social media or find those people that are in that sphere of influence, right? My sphere started with Jagger. I had a student ask about weighted balls. I said, they scare me. So I called Jagger and I said, hey, what do you know about weighted balls? He goes, call Kyle up at Driveline. So I start connecting the dots. And next thing you know, I'm following guys that they're following and learning from guys that they're learning from and kind of expanding our horizons. And that's kind of how my development tree has evolved over the years.
Right. So when you're when you bring in a new student, like I said, I just had a student right before we came in here. And what are, from your experience, what are key factors that contribute to a pitcher's long-term success and like his durability? Like something you and I really lock in on is, like I tell people all the time, like especially the younger guys, is I don't care where you are now as a player. Like I care, but like I want to be successful, but I'm like far more concerned with where they are when they're 18 and going into college.
Well,
right?
I think that's where parents need to stop seeking out lessons.
Yeah,
these one-off. Put a Band-Aid on a boo-boo, right? Like for immediate success, because that's not going to stick. It might work in the short term within a day or two of you actually getting that lesson. But next week, the week after that, that athlete without practice, proper practice and repetition, that athlete is going to revert back to those old habits, right? And so in the immediate, you might be happy because, my kid is hitting the ball or he's throwing the ball or he's got a great curveball, whatever it might be. But long term, it sets them up for failure. And so our focus here is on long-term athletic development, not short-term Band-Aids on a boo-boo. So that means that we're looking holistically at the player, right? We need to look at, like when we do Mickey wants to come in. You should let him in. So when we do come here, Mick. There he is. You might see the waggy tail down there. He was scared. Daddy, leave me. So when we're looking holistically at the player, we're looking at how they move. We're looking at immobility and stability in their bodies. We're looking at mechanics, looking for red flags, arm actions. The most common ones we see in here are bad arm actions, bad front legs. If all things are there that are good, then we start to nitpick, right? Then we're going to start to go down to a more microscopic level and go, all right, how are the hips moving, how are the shoulders moving, And then at the end of the day, for probably 99% of the athletes that come through here, they lack size and strength, right? So it's not just pitching. It's not just hitting, right? It's a holistic look at the entire athlete. The bigger, stronger you get, the faster you're going to be, the harder you're going to throw it, the further you're going to hit it, the healthier you're going to be to stay on the field. All of those things are relevant, right? What are your eating habits like? What are your sleeping habits like? Baseball development is, for lack of a better term, it's no longer a six-pack of beer and a pack of cigarettes, right? Like that's where some of the old guard hangs out, right? That you don't need to do any of that stuff. Just show up and play. Like, no, the demands of the game don't dictate just show up and play.
Right.
The demands of the game are big, fast, strong, right? If you have those metrics, then we can start looking at stuff. But if you lack the basic quality of size and strength, the stuff is not going to be as
not going to matter,
right? And again, for anybody listening or watching, 99% of athletes fall into this category, right? Your son or daughter, more than likely, is not the freak. So don't think that they are, right? Everybody wants to be Tim Lincecum. Like, he's only 5'10" and threw 97 miles an hour. It's great. His nickname was the Freak.
Yeah.
Right. There's a reason why he was called the Freak, because most athletes don't fall into that category. So don't think that your kid is the freak, right? Your kid is the average baseball player, whether he's a youth player, high school player, college player. So now what are the things that we can do to take your average player and make them a above average player that stands out amongst his peers?
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like treat him like he's average till you recognize he's not.
Right. I mean, there might come a time early in their career where you go, all right, this kid's got something special, right? And then you foster that. But for most kids, it's not going to show up until after puberty. Right? Once they finish growing and getting into their man body and get a little hair on their lip, like you're not really going to start categorizing athletes into freaks, phenoms or average people, right? You got to wait until Mother Nature takes its course and then see what you're left with. And then do I have to add or do I have to fine tune?
Right. Can you share any specific strategies or techniques? And I mean, like for guys who are listening to this who may not be like, we're probably aligned on our philosophies 99%. We're
between you and me?
Yeah.
You better do what I tell you or I'll fire you.
So can you explain some specific strategies and techniques that you and I both use that would help pitchers improve their mechanics and optimize their performance on the mound?
Improve mechanics and optimize performance. It's kind of a loaded question, right? Because improve mechanics.
That's why I asked you.
Thanks. So, like I said, improve mechanics. Okay, well, what does that mean?
Right.
What are we trying to improve? Is it an arm action thing? Is it a repeatability thing, right? For a lot of youth athletes, most of the time it boils down to repeatability, right? Your kid doesn't throw a lot of strikes. It's great. Does he have good form technique? Yeah, he does. Okay, so let's keep repeating the good stuff and work on maybe something more external like a focal point, right? And that will help him be more around the zone to throw strikes. Kids, I find a lot of kids today in today's game, my kid not being excluded from this group, overthink the hell out of things, right? Where it's, if I don't do something right one time, it's the end of the world. And getting them to, this goes back to my Jaeger training, right? Breathe. First and foremost, just breathe. Take a deep breath, slow the game down, right? And stay present. Alan talks a lot about being present and process-oriented versus being goal-oriented, right? The goal being, I want to throw a strike. Okay, that's great. But how do we get to throw a strike, right? What does the process like that look like? Should start with a deep breath. Next, pick a focal point. If you have one mechanical cue that makes sense to you, then you can add that in there. That's an optional piece. And then throw the ball with intent, right? Trust that all the 2 or 3 steps leading up to that point are going to then equal a successful result, right? And a successful result might just be throw strike, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be strike the hitter out or get a ground ball or a pop fly, right? It could be I gave up a hit, I gave up a home run, I walked him, right? But it's focusing on that process to get to that point, which is really, really important for our youth athletes, more so than the mechanical things. We can worry about mechanics here in the facility. We can do all the reps without consequences of results, right? When you're in the game, your job is to compete. It's to get outs. And so we need to be able to delineate those two mindsets, right? In gym, whoever it is, whether you're here with us or somebody else, that's when you work on the specific things that you can control. You can constrain movements. You can, repeat drills. You can play games, whatever it might be. When you're in a baseball game, your job is to get the hitter out. Your job is to give your team a chance to win the baseball game. And so finding the balance between those two things and being able to effectively communicate that to our athletes becomes imperative.
Right. Before we continue with our conversation with Jason, I want to take a moment to remind you, our incredible listeners, to support the Fast Performance Baseball podcast. If you're finding value in the insights and expertise shared on this show, we kindly ask you to show your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform. By hitting that like button or giving us a positive review, you're not only helping us reach a wider audience, but also encouraging us to keep bringing you the best content in baseball development. And don't forget to hit the share button too. Share this episode with your fellow baseball enthusiasts, teammates, coaches, and anyone who could benefit from the knowledge shared by our incredible guests. We truly appreciate your support and your engagement to help us grow and continue to bring you more valuable insights from industry experts. So if you haven't done so already, take a moment right now to like, share, and subscribe to the Fast Performance Baseball podcast. Your support means the world to us. And now, let's get back to our conversation with Jason as we explore more fascinating aspects of baseball performance and development. Can you discuss, and you're huge on arm care with, your, previous work with Allen. Can you discuss the importance of arm care and injury prevention in pitching? And, what steps do we take as a facility to minimize the risk of injury in our training programs?
Sure. There's no excuse not to have an arm care program. I don't care what age you are.
Yeah.
There's just zero excuse. Jager bands are like $35, right? They're the cheapest, most effective tool that you can get. And if you're a parent of a 5-6-year-old, does that mean my kid should be doing arm care? No, you don't have to do arm care at 5 or 6, right? They just learn how to wipe their butt. Let's keep it simple, right?
Create good habits.
So you could start with something simple like, hey, we're going to do arm circles. Right, we're just going to get their body moving, get some blood flow going, right? But 5 and 6-year-olds are at very little risk, if any risk, of Tommy John. Although I'm sure there's somebody out there who's had it. I'd actually like to see that one. But once they get to, let's say, 9 years old, which is at Southeast Denver where my kids have played, kid pitch starts at 9 years old. So at 9 years old, that's a great time to start implementing an arm care program and then hopefully carry that on to 10, 11, 12, and beyond. But start in baby steps, right? So arm care could be something as simple, let's do some arm circles or some static stretching, right? Then you can introduce something like J-bands. Then you can introduce something like long toss, right? Then you can introduce something when they're age appropriate to something like weighted ball training. But keep it something that is manageable. It's not going to take 30 minutes to get through for a kid. And then also keep in mind their age and ability, right? But just like any habit, there's three phases of habit creation. I don't want to do it. I do it because I have to do it, and I do it because I want to do it, right? The I don't want to do it, I always equate this to my kids brushing their teeth. I don't want to do it. So I'm trying to get them to brush their teeth. Dad, I don't want to do it. And then you got to force them to go do it.
Yeah.
Then they get to the stage where I've hammered them so much about brushing their teeth that they go do it begrudgingly. Right? They're like, if I don't do this, Dad's going to yell at me, right? So they're doing it out of fear of punishment. Then the third stage, they go to the dentist, they get a clean checkup, they get a lollipop or whatever it is, and they're like, well, shoot, when I brush my teeth, I get a reward, right? And so they see the benefit of it, right? I don't have cavities, my parents are happy, my dentist is happy. So there's a buy-in at that point. It's no different with arm care. Force them to do their bands first or their arm circles or whatever it is, and they're going to begrudgingly do it, but keep on them. The next phase is going to be they're going to do it probably half-assed, but they're going to do it because they don't want coach to yell at them or mom and dad to yell at them. And then when their arm doesn't hurt and their buddies does, right, or they go out and have a great game and they can associate that with the care that they took for their arms, now there's buy-in and they go, I got to do this every single time, and if I don't, I'm going to feel like crap.
Right.
So, and that from A to C in that instance there could be different from everybody. It could take a week, could take a month, could take a year, right? Everybody's skill acquisition or buy-in is going to be different. But the goal is that we stay consistent with it, right? It's not something that we do because coach is looking at me. It's doing it because I see the value in it. And once we get to that point, then we can start adding pieces to that. And so the second part of your question was, how do we do that here? So we have a full warm-up protocol that every athlete goes through. Starts with soft tissue work, foam roll lacrosse ball, right? So we're going to work our lower half. We're going to wake the CNS up. We're going to take the lacrosse ball. We're going to get our forearms and our shoulders and our backs, right? Then we're going to go into J-bands, right? The bedrock of our arm care program. Do the J-band program, resistance bands. We've kind of shortened it up over the years. We used to try and do all 10 or 11 of the exercises that are on the sheet. We've kind of narrowed it down to 6 or 7 that we feel are the most important, at least in the time frames that we have with our athletes. And then wrist weights, if you want to do wrist weights, I've been getting away from them a little bit, but that'll probably be more something that I do in the fall and the winter when guys are out of season. And then we go through a plyo routine depending on age. For our older athletes, they're going to go through the full boat of plyo drills. Weights are going to be dependent upon age and skill. Drills are going to be dependent upon deficiencies in throwing motions and mechanics. Youth athletes would be more. We're going to use plyo balls, but they're going to be more in the setting of athleticism. Right? We're doing hop drills. We're doing quick pick drills. We're not throwing the heavy balls, but we're throwing balls with a little bit of extra. I should have muted my phone.
That's all right. I've done that too.
That's JC. He's probably mad at me for something. So, you know what I mean? Like we're doing arm care as part of our program in the same manner that a mom and dad or a coach would be doing it with their athlete, realizing that you have to do these things in order for us to get to the fun part, which is, maybe it's a velo day, maybe it's we're going to throw a bullpen, maybe it's going to be we're going to work on mechanics, whatever it might be. But in order to get to that point, I need to have you sufficiently loose and warm first.
Right. So we'll get you on a couple more things. We're limited for time. Maybe
we're stretched.
We'll have you again pretty soon. We'll have a longer version.
I think
of
you
this.
know where I work.
I think I do. I know how to get a hold of you.
Yes.
So can you give me, from your, your unique path, can you give me, and we can, relate this to what it is like now, or guys coming up. Can you relate the unique challenges and considerations involved with developing young pitchers and helping them navigate the transition from high school to college and then hopefully to professional?
I'm trying to think about how you want me to direct this. So I think at a young age, something that I've done with my kids is emphasize the idea of intent, right? Throw hard every single time, swing the bat hard every single time, and the rest will effectively take care of itself, right? Develop that intent at an early age. I'm not worried about necessarily about location and results. I'm worried about developing the pieces that are going to then scale at the next level, right? So I've always said if my 13-year-old came into high school and every coach goes, this kid throws about as hard as anybody we've seen, but has no idea where it's going, then I've done my job, right? Because I can teach you how to command and control the intention, right? But it's much more difficult when your body's already been governed by coaches that are like, just throw strikes, right? Don't throw it so hard. Let's pull back so that we can command the ball better. It's much more difficult to then teach that intent back into them than it is for me to take the intent that they have and control it or focus it into the right direction.
Right.
So then when you get to high school, obviously strength, speed, power are all going to play. Velocity is still going to absolutely matter, but now we have to start looking at things like stuff and command, right? What kind of stuff do you possess? What pitches can you throw? Can you throw for strikes? Can you throw strikes? Can you compete at the high school level, and at what level is that? Right. Then you're going to go on to play college ball, right? Well, the college level has been pulled by Major League Baseball, right? So MLB goes, all right, average starting velocity for pitcher in MLB is 93 miles an hour. Average relief velocity is 95 miles an hour, right? So if we take those two metrics and we go then and look at college goes, shoot, we got to try and match them, right? We got to have these guys ready for the draft. So now every guy at a Power 5 school is basically throwing 92, 93 plus, right? Paul Skeen's throwing 100. Obviously, Dolander and all those other guys are all throwing triple digits. So you can see how the college levels have adapted to what the big league levels have done. Well, in order to get recruited to a Power 5 where you need to be 92, 93, what does the high school player have to do? They have to up their game as well, right? And so now the specificity and the demands of the game are immensely greater, right? And now it's pulling up our youth levels as well. And in reality, I think there's a conversation to be had about, can we segregate the youth from the high school level, right? Can we just let the kids be kids at the youth level? Let's not worry about playing 60, 80 games over the summer or 6 games over a weekend or whatever it might be. Let's let the kids go do kid things, but take them more down that development path where we're going to start emphasizing things like strength and power, proper eating and sleeping habits, so that when they do get to high school, me as a high school coach goes, all right, this kid can play baseball. He has an understanding of his body and how it works. He's just underdeveloped, undersized, and understrength. So I'm going to get him in the weight room for the next 4 years, and I'm going to then start to fine-tune what has been laid out in front of me. Where right now, and I have a small sample size at my high school, is I got a bunch of guys who can throw and hit, but nobody who can play baseball. They don't know how to run the bases. They don't know how to do cuts and relays. They don't know where to field or to take a throw. They have no idea what a PFP is. These things are completely foreign to them, which tells me that our youth coaches are letting down our youth players because they're so worried about chasing useless medals and trophies that they have forgotten that we need to develop the overall athlete. And so I think that's kind of where you wanted to go with this question was, how are we looking at this in long-term development, right? Instead of, mom and dad going, well, my 8-year-old wants to be the best 8-year-old. That's great. But next year he might be the worst 9-year-old, right? So I said everything really starts when puberty starts. And puberty starts different for everybody. Your 12-year-old might be head and shoulders better than another 12-year-old on that team. But when they turn 13, if that lesser 12-year-old hits puberty, now he's bigger and stronger and he's leapfrogged and your kid is flatlining, right? There's a problem there. So we need to keep things in perspective of the long-term athlete development versus the short-term victories and trophies.
Right. No, that's right where I wanted you to go.
Yes.
So one last thing we'll go with, I try to ask everybody that comes on here is, what is your number one piece of advice for the amateur athlete, the guys like we work with primarily, that they want to, what do they need to know, or what advice can you give to them to, they want to reach college baseball or professional baseball, what do they need to be working on harder that they may not be doing?
I think the best thing that they can do to keep things in perspective is this. You only get one chance at this. One. That's it. Mm-hmm. Don't screw it up, right? So if this is truly something that you want to do, right? I want to be a professional baseball player, then everything that you do from high school and beyond should be laser focused on that goal, right? And that means I can't be distracted by the idea that I've got to get quote-unquote exposure, or I've got to go play more games, or whatever it might be. You have to understand what you are capable of, where your shortcomings are, and then where you need to go to improve those things, whether it's coming to a facility like ours or getting in the gym or doing your own research, right? A lot of it's free and available to anybody on the internet, right? Dialing in your food, dialing in your sleep. That doesn't mean that I can't go be a teenager. That doesn't mean that I have to give up video games and social life, right? I can't go play another sport. You can absolutely do those things. But at the end of the day, if your goal is to play in Major League Baseball, then you get one chance from the time you're, let's call it 13 years old. We'll just call it post-puberty.
Yep.
From that point until you graduate high school or college, depending on how fast your growth curve is, you only get one opportunity to prepare yourself. If this is what you want to do for the rest of your life, then make sure that you are doing everything humanly possible. The difficulty in that scenario is that you're talking about underdeveloped minds, right, who are easily distracted and are at the whim basically of their parents and coaching staffs, right? So that's where I think having some individual free thinking is important. Doing your own research and asking questions is extremely important. But always keep in mind, you only get one chance at this. Don't play the what-if game. It is the worst game you'll ever play, and you'll never win it.
Yeah.
Don't play, well, what if I had XYZ? What if I had lifted? What if I had listened to Coach Cole? What if I had, spent more time in the gym or thrown long toss more? Or what, don't play that game because you'll never win it.
Awesome. Where can all the people find you on social medias and stuff like that?
Well, you run all of our social medias.
You try to help as much as you can. I know.
On the Twitter box, it's at Fast Baseball Dev, DEV, like development. On the gram, it's at Fast Baseball. Mm-hmm. And then our website is fastcolorado.com. So that's pretty much all we do. But you run all the socials.
I try my hardest.
You are the official social media intern. It's an unpaid internship.
I call myself coordinator.
Coordinator, sorry.
Coordinator. Yeah. Awesome. We'll have you on when we're not let's press for time another time, and we can go maybe a little more in depth on some things.
Yeah. Well, even if the listeners who are listening to this or viewers who are watching this, if they have questions and they want us to go in a certain direction, ask those questions, because that's the best way to get the answers is to ask questions, right? And that doesn't just apply to to baseball. It could be nutrition, it could be sleep, it could be collegiate recruiting. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of areas that parents are going to have questions of. Ask us, because we've probably heard it, we've probably answered it, and if not, we could find you the right information.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason.
Cool. Appreciate you.
And that wraps up our insightful conversation with Jason Hirsh. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to Jason for taking the time to share his expertise and experiences with us today. It was truly a pleasure to have him on the show. Now I want to take a moment to thank all of our amazing listeners for tuning in and supporting the Fast Performance Baseball podcast. Your continued support means the world to us as we strive to bring you the best baseball content in baseball development. Remember, you can stay connected with me, Cole Thomas, on Instagram and on Twitter at Cole Thomas Fast. Feel free to reach out with any questions, suggestions, or topics you'd like to see covered on future episodes. Don't forget to follow Fast Baseball on Instagram and on TikTok at Fast Baseball and on Twitter at Fast Baseball Dev. Stay up to date with the latest tips, drills, and insights shared by our incredible guests. And for all things related to athlete performance, be sure to follow Fast Performance on Instagram at Fast Performance CO. You'll find valuable resources, success stories, and updates on their training programs. Lastly, make sure to go to our website at www.fastcolorado.com for more information about Fast Performance and the services they offer and how they can help you or your athletes reach their full potential. Before we sign off, I want to encourage you to show support to the podcast by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your engagement helps us grow the show to reach more listeners that can benefit from the valuable insights from our guests. Thank you once again for joining us today. Stay tuned for more exciting episodes packed with knowledge, tips, and inspiration to help you excel in the world of baseball development. Until next time, keep working hard, chasing your dreams, and always strive for greatness.